It's hard to find a game with the same kind of influence as Doom, and for good reason. It's 25 years old now, but in 1993 it set a benchmark, and not just for what PC hardware was capable of, but for video games in general. Doom raised the bar in a variety of ways, and it kicked a ton of ass doing it. Of course, this isn't news to anyone who's ever actually played the game, but if you haven't, here's what you've been missing. Now, its reputation does precede it, and most people already get the basic story. You play a lone, nameless space marine man, and you basically fight all the bad guys until they die. But what you might not know about are Doom's various cheat codes and developer tools. Some of them have actually had a huge impact on the industry by popularizing speedrunning and even defining some of the gaming lexicons still used today, and that's why I'm here. Codex is a series that documents the effects of cheat codes in classic video games, but also talks about who coded them and why, and what effect they've had on the industry or just the culture of gaming. Based on this, Doom is certainly a good place to start, but I'm gonna have to explain some pretty important stuff as we go along. Don't worry, I'll be brief. So chances are, if you've recently played Doom, you've probably played it through Steam on a Windows PC. But 25 years ago, we had Microsoft DOS. This disk operating system was entirely text-based, and commands were issued using only the command line. So to run an application, let's say Doom from 1993, you would first have to manually navigate to the directory or folder that the game is in. In order to find the game files, you would then type dir for directory, and then look for the right file name. Type said file name, which in this case would just be doom.exe, hit enter, and you're good to go. Games from this era are still playable this way through applications like DOSBox, and DOS itself actually still plays a role in Windows today. It's just been renamed to Command Prompt. Anyway, for this video I'm mostly going to be talking about the Ultimate Doom, released in 1995. So as you can see, I've typed something at the end of the file name here. This is our first example of a developer tool, used by appending this command line parameter to the game's file name. So by itself, devparm doesn't do a whole lot. But while enabled, a frame rate meter is displayed on the bottom left. The more white dots are visible, the more labored the rendering process is, so on slower computers this will indicate a need to optimize graphics settings or to upgrade hardware entirely. Another feature of the devparm command is the ability to take screenshots, which was pretty cool for back in the day. Custom content creators, called modders, would use this to share examples of their work, highlight bugs, or just show off the game in general. Moving right along though, typing episode followed by 1 through 4 will immediately start a new game at the first level of the specified episode. So a lot of PC games in the 1990s followed this episodic structure. The first episode would be released completely free to distribute, called shareware, but the remaining episodes would have to be bought, often by check or money order. The warp parameter works similarly to episode, but it starts the game at a specific level instead. Each episode of Doom only has 9 levels, with the 8th being a boss fight and the 9th being a secret level. So to start a game at, let's say, the boss of episode 2, you would type warp 2 space 8. Oh right, and warping to a new level also resets your status and your inventory. So yeah. This parameter is actually required for a few others as well, like fast, which makes enemies attack and move more quickly, and no monsters, which, like the name implies, removes all enemies from the game. So this is pretty basic stuff so far, but here's where things get a little interesting. Before Doom came along, there were really only a handful of multiplayer first-person games, and none of them were truly online. In 1993, public internet had barely gotten off the ground, so instead, these games would use a local area network, like a daisy chain of PCs linked together. Some games also used modem connectivity, but this was really just to facilitate a direct link between two computers using a telephone line. Doom was no different. In fact, it actually used both of these connection methods to their respective advantages. A modem connection between two computers was the method of choice for cooperative play. The other mode, however, was kind of like a different game altogether. It ran through local networking with no host required, and it had support for up to 4 players. This mode was enabled by using the deathmatch parameter. Deathmatch kickstarted the era of LAN parties, and it created an entirely new avenue for gaming that didn't previously exist. Okay, it had technically been done before, but never with this level of fidelity, or with such an emphasis on fine motor skills. And this brings us to the next major breakthrough that can be attributed to Doom.